What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics. And man, it has been quite the week for comic book collectors finding some crazy stuff out there. I put out a video about a week ago about that renter at an apartment and how they had their storage space under some stairs. They found what's approximately $100,000 to $125,000 in comics in a box. Then we've got this one. So this was a series of two posts that were on the comic book collecting subreddit, and it's like the comic book speculation subreddit, but a person that went to a local auction and picked up two of the biggest books that exist, a Batman #1 and an Amazing Fantasy 15. Now, before I get all the comments that these must be fake and all this kind of thing, it is not. This auction absolutely is real, and these are the books that were at that auction, and this is, this person taking these pictures. Now, it could be possibly that he's not the one that bought them, but I get the impression he's the one that bought them. And based on comments that I've seen in there, some people confirm that they were at that auction and they know that this person bought these books. And so these are the books this person bought. Now, what they paid for them, if you go down here, he actually tells us in the post a little further down. For the Batman #1, he paid $43,000. For the Amazing Fantasy 15, he paid $13,700. Now, before we get into this anymore, I want to say, like, one thing he stated in here was someone asked if the books were complete, and he said, yes, the books are complete. And that's going to come up a little bit later, in this conversation of values and everything for this. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about before I get into this any further is you're going to hear a little rant from me right now. And it's something that I had been considering making a dedicated video just to this because I've just been seeing it too much and it's really bugging me. So something that I have been seeing a lot of in posts, whether it's like this or just whether it's on Facebook groups or Reddit, it's just so much negative hate, garbage crap in the comment sections. And I know some people will say it's like, oh, you're posting on the internet, you're open to whatever criticism is out there. And it's like, I get it. I make YouTube content. Like, I get it. But this is something where people are posting in forums that are specific for comic book collectors, and comic book collectors are attacking them. Like, what is this? What makes people do this garbage? Is it just jealousy? I mean, why if somebody posts something that they're excited about, if somebody like I see posts where people post like X-Men 266, like First Gambit or ASM 300, and just the comments are just people ripping on them or insulting the book or criticizing the condition. I mean, it's like, if the person is just posting something that they're saying like, hey, look at this cool thing I got, either say that looks cool or congratulations, or move along. Like, if me talking about this can get one person to think before they type, this is worth it. Like, if you're thinking, how can I make this person feel like garbage today? Maybe think again and just don't type anything. All right. Because this has just gotten out of hand, because it happens in this post too. And this person is asking for advice, but they're not asking to be called a liar and a scammer and all this kind of garbage. Like, is unnecessary. Like, if they're asking for advice, give advice, try to be helpful. If they're posting about something that they're excited about, tell them congratulations. Like, we should be lifting people up, not trying to drag them down. So that's the end of my rant. I've just been really sick of seeing this kind of stuff out there, but hopefully you can at least get someone to stop making those types of comments or think twice before they type. So this was the first post they made. Went to an auction, got two comics. There's a local auction today, and I was lucky enough to get two comics I thought I would never get. Stickers are from the auctioneer and are on the outside of the comic protectors. Their other post: I got two comics today, and I'm looking for advice. There was a local auction. I was able to buy a Batman 1, which is ungraded, with some cover damage, but the entire comic is there. Sticker is from auction and is external to the comic protector. I also got an Amazing Fantasy 15, which also has cover damage on the edges of the cover, but is also intact. From what I've seen in other posts, I should have the comics clean, pressed, and graded, but I'm not sure how to go about that. I'm a little afraid to send by mail or FedEx. Then I would wonder what the best strategy is for selling the comics. Obviously not selling at a local auction. I've seen Heritage suggested in other posts, but I would love to hear other suggestions. Thanks in advance. So I've got a few things to say about this post in general. First one, based on what I've seen in the comment section, this person is a comic collector, but doesn't really seem to be like a vintage comic collector. Like a lot of the stuff they talk about are like a little bit later books, you know, like copper, bronze, maybe not even bronze, more copper and modern. And it seems like, you know, they had the money or whatever, and they jumped after these like two big books. But I don't know how experienced they are with respect to books like this. And I'm going to say like that could potentially be a problem for them. And so we're going to talk about like these two different books and what the possible issues are going to be with what they paid, because they paid $43,000 for the Batman 1 and what I say $13,700 for the Amazing Fantasy 15. I'll say the Amazing Fantasy 15, I think they're fine. You know, before we get into a little more detail with that one, I think the Amazing Fantasy 15, I think they're fine. The Batman 1, I think they could be in some trouble. But before people start saying like, oh, you know, again, this is fake and all that kind of stuff, I'll show you. When in the comments, he said he showed where the auction was, and he provided the web page for it. And it's this Ron Gilligan Auctioneering in Pennsylvania website that looks like it was designed in 1993 and was still out of date at that time. It is crazy that this estate sale went through a place that had this type of website, because I'm telling you, this auction was insane. Incredible books. I mean, you saw two of them right there. I mean, there were books like there was an Action Comics 7, second Superman cover, Tales of Suspense 39, Tales of Suspense 40, Hulk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Amazing Spider-Man 1. I think there's an X-Men 1, Fantastic Four 1, Amazing. I mean, just book after book after book, just big key comics. And not just that, cards too, like Mickey Mantle cards and this kind of stuff. So massive, massive collection. Now, from what I've seen in the comments, it sounds like a lot of the stuff actually did pretty well, which is crazy. And I'm wondering if maybe word got out about this auction and people traveled from like New York or something and you know, ended up going to it, because I mean, this was like a local in-person auction. There's no website, you know, for this. There's no remote bidding. And if you're wondering about this one, again, like the thing that bit me a little bit waiting to make this video, I was planning on making it earlier, but we had that whole CGC fake case that I made the video about, and I decided that was the priority, and I didn't get around to making this one. Came back, and the link that went to all the listings for this auction is gone now. It was said February 15th, and I did look at it when it was up. It had all the pictures of the comics and everything, and I saw those same two books. Like, it is those two books. But I thought they might pull it down by the time I got to it, so I did copy all the URLs, and luckily one of them still works. That's this one right here. And this is the PDF listing of all the items. Let's see here. Like, this is a big auction. All the items that were in this. And it's just crazy stuff. And the funny thing is there's like no rhyme or reason to the order of them. I mean, it's just random. And you know, you'll have like, first it's a comic, then it's a card, then it's another comic. There's nothing alphabetical. I mean, like, look how far down here. It's like, there's an Action 252, first Supergirl, and then EC Comics Panic #7. Then you go up here and it's, I don't know, Action Comics or Action Stories #1 from 1940. I mean, Don Quixote, 19. I mean, just all kinds of crazy stuff. But up at the top here, you can see here's the Batman #1. Here's a Detective Comics 73, Tales of Suspense 39, Hulk #1, Hulk #2, Hulk #3. But like, you can see those aren't even in order. It's like, here's Hulk #1 and lot 27. Hulk #2 is lot 31. Hulk #3 is lot 33. Then you have to go down further down here somewhere. And well, here's Hulk 181, you know, first Wolverine. And then the other Hulks were somewhere down on this page. Oh, here it is. Here's 4, 5, and 6. Those ones were in order. It's just random stuff. Here's the Famous Funnies 210. There's a Frazetta cover. I mean, it's wild. Like, this auction is wild. But first thing I want to talk about with the Batman, he said it was complete. This is the listing. Batman #1, spring issue, 10-cent comic book. All of the pages are there, but the centerfold is missing. So I wonder if they meant all the story pages are there, but the centerfold is missing. Because if centerfold is missing, all the pages are not there by definition, right? So this is where I'm wondering, because I said this person doesn't sound like they're super familiar with comics at this level, like Golden Age maybe. And if they are, I mean, fine. But this tells you that centerfold was not there. And if that centerfold is not there, he probably paid too much for that comic. And so, and that's the thing, like people in the comments section were saying like, oh, you know, this is how much it's worth. It's worth like 110,000 and all this kind of thing. And it's like, not if the centerfold's missing. And you have to know to check that stuff, to count the pages. I mean, they said it here. And if you don't count the pages, you don't know for sure. But we'll go into pricing and all that, but I'll talk about the potential problems here, obviously. Then if you go down to number 50, this is the Amazing Fantasy 15. Amazing Fantasy 15, introducing Spider-Man, 12-cent comic book. Doesn't have any additional note there, so we're going to assume that book is complete. So first thing with the Batman number 1. So let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's see, it's a little tricky. Okay, so here's that Batman number 1. Zooms way in. It's like it's like either super close or pretty far away. But we go along the spine here, and there are a few things that make me a little nervous about this book. One of them is this little piece up here. This kind of like discoloration along the spine is another thing. You can see it. And then you've got this kind of dark red here. So the things that make me a little nervous about this is that this could be glue. It might be tape. I don't know. It could be tape residue, which tape is fine. But if it's glue, you're going to get a restoration note. This makes it feel like possibly color touch. When you have this darker red next to the lighter red, it could be color touch, but this also could be something from that glue residue or tape residue discoloring it. That is possible. And then when you have this little piece up here, it's just like it's a different color. It almost feels like it was added on, but I can't say for sure. Right. So the stuff along the spine, there's a couple little things that make me a little nervous that it could be a restored book. We can't say for sure. I mean, I don't have it in hand. This is the best I can, the best I can do with respect to this book. Let's see. So we can scroll along here. I mean, you can see it's got some wear and all this kind of stuff. But if it was complete and that isn't restoration along the spine, this book could be like 1.5, 1.8. I don't know, maybe, I don't think it gets a 2. But I mean, maybe a 1.8, something like that. And then, yeah, the person would have done very, very well. So here's a Batman number 1, 1.5. Here's a $72,000 sale. I think that was maybe a brittle page copy. Let's take a look real quick. So here's a $72,000 sale. Yeah, that was the brittle page copy where it had the chipping and everything inside the case. This one that was signed by Stan Lee. That's right, on the outside of the case. But you have this sale for $108,000, this one for $78,000, 1.8 last sale, 138, 2.0, 102. I think that was a brittle copy as well. Let's check. Because it matters. It's slightly brittle. Like it matters, on these types of books. This is a good looking copy. I think that's actually not a bad deal on that one. But 2.5, 156,000, like whatever. So like if this book was complete and unrestored, this is probably $100,000 to $125,000 book. And yeah, if he paid $43,000, he did really, really well. If it's missing the centerfold, now you can see last sale, $46,000. That's probably around what this book would be if it's not restored. It's probably a $40,000 to $50,000 book in that approximate price range. And he paid, let's see if there's any other, yeah, there isn't any other ones down here, but he paid $43,000 and it's raw. So if he wants to sell this book, you all kind of almost have to get it graded. And if it comes back a 0.5, he's probably going to get around this price, around $45,000. And if you're getting a book like that graded, even if you have, let's say you got the CGC account, like the best version of the account, I think it's going to cost you, what is it, like 3.2% of value, because it's 4% of value. You get 20% off. You get 3.2% of value. Say they estimate the value of that book at $45,000. You're going to be paying like $1,500 to get it graded. If you want to have it pressed and clean first, people sometimes charge a decent amount when you're doing the bigger books. So you're probably going to be into this maybe $2,000, somewhere in that range, to get it pressed, cleaned, and graded. So now your 43,000 is 45,000. If you sell it for 45,000, you're going to sell it on, say, Heritage or Comic Link or Comic Connect. You're going to give up anywhere from 10 to 20% in a fee. And so you're likely going to take home anywhere from 36,000 to 40,000. So you spent 45,000, you take home 36 to 40. So I think the Batman one, unless he's planning to hold it, which it doesn't really sound like he is, like he's planning to sell it, he's going to lose between 5 and 9,000. That's my opinion on this book, if it's actually incomplete, like the listing says. So if I was him and he watches this, or if somebody knows him and tells him about this, what he absolutely needs to do is go to comics.org, look up Batman #1, and then you go down and find let's see if we can find the right year, 1940. So you go to this site, comics.org, you look up the book, and it's going to give you the page count. And this is the page count including covers. So it's the total page count including covers, meaning that you would have the cover, then you would have 16 pages to center, 16 more pages, and then a back cover. That is what this one should likely be. That would be 68 total sides of paper. If he counts them up and ends up with 64 total sides of paper, he is missing a wrap, which would be that centerfold. Likely the centerfold that it's missing. So that needs to be done, or he's going to have a very unpleasant surprise when he goes to get that book graded. Or, I mean, his presser might notice. Sometimes the pressers will be able to identify that real quick and let you know. They handle a lot of books, and there's a lot of pressers that can just tell based on the weight of the book. So that's the thing here, with when you're dealing with books like this, a little bit of knowledge can actually hurt you. It's like, that this is a big book, it sells for like $100,000 or more, but that's if it's complete. And this was really misleading. All the pages are there, but the centerfold is missing. Like, it's very misleading. And, and maybe that's an argument for, I don't know what the return policy is at R. Gilligan Auctions, but I mean, they did say the centerfold is missing, so I don't know, but that's that one. So my guess is probably losing 5,000 to 9,000 on that purchase. But if maybe this is wrong and, it is actually complete, then maybe he does well. Now, if there is restoration, obviously restoration is going to make it even worse. So if it's a 0.5 restored, it's not going to be, like awful or anything, because once you get down to the 0.5s, it's not like a huge deal. If it's color touch or glue, those types of things can be removed. For a 0.5 restored, you can see here's like a C1, 4 center wraps married, back cover, and page 32 missing, incomplete. Went for 37,000 in 2022. I mean, it's not going to get the same number, 45,000, but it's probably going to go for like 35, maybe 38, somewhere in that range. And so you're going to be obviously even worse off then. Now you're losing like 10 to 15,000, after fees and everything. So yeah, I mean, this one could be, this one could be a tough lesson, that Batman #1, if it is actually incomplete. Now let's talk about the Amazing Fantasy 15, because that one's a little better story, I think. So we got the Amazing Fantasy 15. It generally looks decent. It does have a big tear here that looks like there's probably tape on the interior of the cover, and you're seeing this tape stain come through. This tear is probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 inches. Might be like a 5-inch tear, give or take. And a 5-inch tear on a book is really going to cap that book at probably like a 2.5. And I already don't really think this book would get a 2.5. Maybe it might. I was like, when I look at this one, I think like 1.8, but it might be a 2. At best case, a 2.5. I mean, the colors look pretty good. Like after you press it and everything, maybe it looks a little better. There is stuff along the spine again, which you kind of like, you wonder, is that glue? Is there maybe some more tape on the interior? That's the type of stuff that makes me a little nervous. And that's where, when you're buying raw books, you really have to have that experience, and you've got to take a close look at these. And I don't know if that person has that experience or took those close looks. If they did, then great. But if they don't, this is where it can definitely hurt you. But if we let's go look at Amazing Fantasy 15. So Amazing Fantasy number 15. And this one, like I said, I think as long as it's not restored, I think they're in pretty good shape. Like we go down and look at a 2, 21,000. There's a 2.5 for 18,000, 1.8, 19,000, 1.5, 17,000. I think that they're probably going to get somewhere around 20 grand, 19 to 20 grand for that book. Now, again, he paid 13.7. They are going to have to get it pressed and cleaned and graded. Grading fees for that one, again, like 3.2% of value is probably going to cost them $500, maybe another 100 for pressing and cleaning, like 600. So they're probably into it 14,300. They sell it for, let's say, 20,000. They pay, I'm going to say 15%. Let's just kind of like average out what the approximate, these, different auction houses are. 15%, they take home 17. So they make like 2 grand, 2,000 to 2,500. I think that's probably, the case with the Amazing Fantasy 15. I do think that this was as long as there's no restoration on here, this was a profitable purchase. Since again, that's what the person's asking. Like they're talking about flipping these books. They're not talking about keeping them. So I think it is a profitable purchase. It's not like a huge win, or anything like that, but I do think it was a good purchase. Now, if it's restored, you're going to probably break even at best, if not maybe lose a little money. So if we look at the restored copies, we kind of go down, and obviously there's tons of restored sales for this book. We look at restored copies, and they just don't sell quite as often. We can see a 1.5 cover trim, 10,800 about a year ago. We had a 1.0 for 12,000. I mean, if it's restored, it's probably going to go for like 13 to 15, and then maybe they lose money. So I'm going to say, like, if the book is unrestored, they probably make 2,000, 2,500. If it's restored, they're probably going to lose a couple grand after fees and everything. So, I mean, overall, this could potentially be a pretty big financial loss. The biggest part of that would be with the Batman 1, if it's incomplete. And given what it sold for, since they were saying that lots of other books were doing very well, it makes me think the people he was bidding against read that description and saw that it was incomplete. Because, I mean, a 0.5, that's about what that book is worth, like 45 grand graded. And so that's kind of my take on it. Now, if it is a 0.5, it's incomplete. I wouldn't even really spend the money on pressing and cleaning, because you're not going to get a better grade. You're at a 0.5, and you're just, at that point, you're throwing good money after bad. And so I would, if you either just hold on to it and wait, because it's a Batman 1, like prices will probably trend up over time. So you just hold on and wait, and you can eventually get out of it whole. But if you need to sell it right away, like, if you bought this thinking you were going to make a quick flip, you're probably going to lose anywhere from 5 to 10,000. And if it's restored, it's going to be worse. But that's the warning, for raw books. Like there's a lot of risk that goes with raw books, like especially old raw books. I mean, Batman number 1 is from 1940. That book is 85 years old now. It has probably gone through a lot of hands, and, people do all kinds of stuff over that time period. And so you've got to really be able to spot things You've got to know those page counts, or if at least like have your phone to know what website to look up to check. Because yeah, it could be rough. But the other thing is, man, I got to learn how to keep an eye out for auction houses like this, or not auction houses, like estate sales like this that have incredible sets of books and everything here. I mean, like I said, it sounds like, for what these two sold for, like the Amazing Fantasy 15, like probably sold around what it's worth. The Batman one maybe sold for more than it's worth. So who knows? Like this auction house seemed to, or this auction platform seemed to have done pretty well. But let me know in the comments what you think. Yeah, I like I said, I don't like I'm not trying to make a post that makes someone like feel bad about their purchase or anything like that. But this is kind of like a warning that if you're dealing with books like this, you really need to know your stuff, because it can bite you pretty bad. And I think that could be the case here. But let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next one.